Welcome to St. John, Nothing Happened Here, with your host Mark Allen Green, a show all about a little city on the east coast of Canada where nothing ever happened. Except for this.
In our continued quest for absolutely nothing, let's travel back to April 1924. We find ourselves on Manawaganish Island, a 48-acre island just to the west of St. John. Despite its proximity to the city, this place is uninhabited. It's just rocky cliffs covered with sparse trees and brush, and secluded beaches. And that makes this the perfect place to go when you want no one to see what you're doing. We hear the roar of a boat engine drawing closer. We turn to see a small vessel speeding toward us. As it draws near, we can tell the boat has seen better days. It may even be taking on water. There are at least 3 men aboard, and we can now make out the name of the boat scrawled on its side, Rosa Mara. The boat pulls as close to shore as the captain can manage. Immediately, the men begin to fill a dory with wooden cases and taxi them ashore. There appears to be at least a couple of hundred more cases aboard, but there is no need for us to look inside to know what they contain. Whiskey. We're at the height of Prohibition, and these men are rum runners, and notorious ones at that. We recognize Harry Dutchy Stone, who has his hands in practically every aspect of the illegal liquor trade in the city, along with a side hustle of counterfeiting money. And next to him is his loyal lieutenants, the Green Brothers. From 1917 to 1927, New Brunswick is under prohibition against alcohol, but St. Johners are still thirsty. And men like the ones we see unloading the boat make sure the thirst is quenched. But the work is not without its danger. To get their supplies, Stone and the Green Brothers had to rendezvous with a big rum carrier from Europe, which was waiting off the coast of Yarmouth, Nova Scotia. To say the seas are rough here would be an understatement. The Rosa Mara had been battered by rough weather and loaded way past its limitation with booze. The boat had taken on water, which necessitated it to divert to Manawaganish Island. Here, they hope to covertly unload its illicit cargo, so the boat can be repaired in St. John. The sea is not the only peril. The waters around here are patrolled by Canadian customs officers in cruisers and small boats designed to outpace and outgun the scourge of rum runners. In fact, there's one coming this way right now. Stone and the Green Brothers are so focused on their task, they don't appear to see the cutter bearing down on them at full speed. It is drawing closer and closer. Finally, Stone's head snaps around and sees what is about to happen. In what seems to be a futile attempt to escape, he raises the anchor and goes full throttle. But the Rosa Mara is so laden with booze and water, it can only manage a feeble limp away from the island. The patrol boat bumps hard against the side of its lesser, and it is all over for Stone and the Green Brothers on this day. They surrender and are taken into custody. Customs officers board the ship and start the count. We hear the final tally, 247 cases of whiskey and gin. With smiles on their faces for a job well done, the customs officers tow their prize back to St. John. Stone and the Green Brothers will be charged and convicted, but will return immediately to their lucrative trade, rum running and bootlegging in St. John during the Roaring 20s. Welcome everyone to the podcast. My name is Mark, and over there is our guest host for this episode, and rising star in the St. John history community, Valerie Emerson, and that means it's St. John. Nothing happened here, with the exception of bootlegging, rum running, and drinking during Prohibition. Welcome to the show, Valerie.
Thank you for having me. Rising star is a little egregious, but I'll take it.
Nah, I think it's well earned. So, guess what? It's been close to 100 years since the end of Prohibition.
Madness.
Now, we're getting into Prohibition, so I think we should start off by mixing up some Prohibition-era cocktails. Are you ready for this, Valerie?
Please.
So what I'm going to do, I found a recipe for something called the New Brunswick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's a Prohibition-era drink. It came from the 1930 cocktail book. And I'm going to tell you the ingredients of this. And you tell me if you're happy with it or if you're not happy with it, if you think it's a good drink. It's called, again, the New Brunswick.
Is there any Irving oil mixed into it for flavor?
There actually could
Just
be a bit. That's true. Wait for it. Okay, so in this cocktail, first thing is 1 part lemon juice.
Okay.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty all right.
1 part maple syrup.
Okay. Could balance the lemon a little,
Okay.
Yeah.
So far, so good?
Yeah.
It might be a consistency thing. It might be a bit thick.
Shh. I'm sure it'll be all right.
We'll see. And then 2 parts bathtub gin.
You might have lost me.
Might have lost you with the bathtub
I'm
gin.
walking out the bar. It's over.
Okay. I didn't actually distill it in my bathtub because you can't do that. So what I did is I found some rusty metal coil down by the shipyard, and then I created this little still with a milk jug. And then it was so gross, the gin, is I had to throw it in my bathtub, mix it with a bunch of other stuff so you could actually drink it. And then I mixed it with lemon juice and maple syrup to try to make it palatable.
For some reason, I'm not sold. I think I'm going to pass. Something about the sort of undertone of metal and rust, it doesn't match my palate preferences.
You don't like the undertones?
No.
Okay. Well, that is Prohibition era because that's what people had to do to get their alcohol fix. So they had to do home brews like that of differing quality. And we'll get into some of the other things like my bathtub gin, Valerie, that's going to be really good compared to some things that were drunk during Prohibition. So we'll get into it. But with Prohibition, we have to talk about 3 eras when it comes to St. John and New Brunswick on Prohibition. The first being Prohibition in New Brunswick when alcohol was banned in the province. And that was 1917 to 1927. Then we have to talk about smuggling to the U.S. during Prohibition because they were under Prohibition from 1920 to 1933. So then we had the crossover, right? So when it was illegal in New Brunswick and illegal in the States, then we had a period of time from 1927 to 1933 when it was not illegal in New Brunswick, but totally illegal to smuggle to the States. So that's what we're getting into. But I think we need to start off with what led to the prohibition of alcohol.
How did we end up there?
Okay, let's talk about the situation in the Maritimes.
Okay.
And it wasn't just the Maritimes, but let's just talk about the situation in the Maritime St. John. How bad was it?
I would venture to say it was pretty bad. I mean, if you think about the Maritimes, and especially along the coast, we are notorious for loving a drink.
Yes.
You love to go to the pub, the bar with your friends, maybe toss a couple back after work or before work, during work, whatever your heart says.
Absolutely. So back in the 18th, 19th century, we would have been not like today, because what was the demographic? Was it everyone drinking?
No, drinking was sort of primarily happening among men. Women were expected to sort of remain docile in the home as homeworkers. They weren't necessarily allowed to go out to the bar and toss a couple back with the gal pals.
Okay. And
yeah.
I have some estimates about the consumption back then. Okay. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
So the estimates of yearly consumption, and I have no idea if it takes in the entire population, so it takes in men, women, and children. I have no idea. But either way, this is really high. Estimated range between 19 and 45 liters of hard alcohol consumed per person per year.
Oh my gosh. That's more than a couple bathtubs.
That's...
Bathtubs of gin,
I got a big bathtub. I got the jacuzzi bathtub of the bathtub
full
gin.
Full of hard liquor, yeah.
Full of hard liquor, of course. Of course. But to give you a comparison, I have the numbers from 2019 in St. John or New Brunswick, and it was 6.8 liters per year. And then if we look at how many liquor stores there were in St. John, okay, take a guess. I got the stats from 1871. How many liquor stores? Because how many liquor stores would there be in St. John now? What, 10, 20?
I wouldn't even go that far, honestly.
Probably not even that high.
No, maybe 10. I would say in 1871, given the fact that the city was smaller and the population was more condensed, maybe 6, 7-ish.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a reasonable guess.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a population of 28,000, and that includes kids and women, and that's not the main market. But we have 275 liquor stores.
Where are they keeping all these?
Everywhere. Around every corner, you will find a liquor store. That meant it was one store for every 52 males.
All right. Well, when you put it like that, it's not so insane. Maybe. It's still a little insane, but it's slightly less.
Valerie, you're getting personal service there. They know your name. Like if you're one of 52 customers coming in the door, they're going to have your regular ready to go. So that's what we were looking at. But so we have a lot of alcohol use and alcohol abuse. So we had a problem, didn't we, Valerie? And can you take us through some of the problems of this? The party ended.
Yeah, the party was certainly over. You can sort of see bits of it in modern alcohol abuse, but during the late 19th century and early 20th century, alcohol consumption was sort of linked to a lot of social ills. So you'll see a lot of poverty because, if you're the husband and you go out to the bars and you spend your entire family budget on alcohol, there's not going to be much left for food and housing. You'd also see a lot of family disputes or a breakdown of a family unit. If you go out and you drink a bunch and then you come home and you're easily angered and you might, abuse your family members. And that obviously also contributes to the breakdown of the family unit. And also, alcoholism would sort of add to a loss of business productivity. Because if you're sloshed on the clock, you're not reaching your maximum capacity.
Probably not. And Valerie, would you take a trip with me? We're getting into the time machine. We're already in the time machine. Okay. But let's go take a look at a factory in St. John in the early 1800s. So we're there, okay? Ready? So we're walking through the front door and we're going to see some big barrels. And what do they have in them?
Liquor.
Rum. And not good quality rum. But the thing is, everyone's going to have a rum break at 10 a.m. So we see it's 10 a.m. now. Everyone's coming around, grabbing a glass of rum or a mug of rum.
Fuel you up for the day.
But we're not done yet.
Oh,
we're not done. Because you have to have your nooner.
Of course.
Then one of two.
Replenish the tank.
Yeah, so so you would have several drinks all day long, and that was the culture back then. And you basically, as a factory owner, this wasn't an option. Even if you saw it as being a problem, you didn't have a choice because workers expected it. It was like, I need salary and I need my rum allowance for the day. So it became so ingrained in society that this became an expectation. You can imagine how that would have gone.
It's almost like if you don't have your rum, then you don't have your workers, It's like getting health benefits. You have to give them.
You have to give them their rum, which, there's two sides of this, of course. You have there's the productivity and the danger. Like this was uber dangerous work at the best of times in factories and shipbuilding. So add in alcohol, probably not a good combination, but the work was draining. Trying to get through those days, that was some of the reason for the drinking.
Yeah, you'd be doing this really sort of rigorous work for long, long days. We sort of think of the weekends now. They wouldn't have 2-day weekends necessarily. And so to sort of push yourself through, you might want a couple drinks every couple hours.
Keep the party going on, kind of.
Sort of.
So, but now we got all these social ills, right? Valerie, so you said it. We got the poverty, the breakdown of family unit, domestic violence, loss of business productivity. What's the answer? Give us an answer.
Well, You can get rid of the liquor.
Ah!
Outlandish though it might seem, you can get rid of that.
Okay, so temperance. Talk to me about temperance movement that came in the early 1800s.
Well, temperance is sort of interesting because when we think of it retrospectively, you think of it as an abstinence movement. But really, when they started all these temperance movements, it was more about moderation.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see a lot of temperance movements sort of emerging around the 1820s, and a lot of them are actually associated with women's suffrage and sort of women's liberation movements because they saw alcohol as one of the key sort of factors in the suppression of women. So you'll see a lot of women's suffrage movements aligning with temperance throughout the early 19th century to sort of push for reduced alcohol consumption in the workplace and also in the home.
Yes, because you had to have those two things.
Yes.
To get temperance, you needed to pass laws.
Mm-hmm.
And laws are passed by politicians. And if you can't vote for the person who will pass the laws to give you temperance, then you're not going to have your temperance. So they go hand in hand.
To even get the idea of temperance into those spaces, you have to be able to be listened to. And at that point, if you're not a legal person is sort of like the idea that you can vote. They're not going to listen to you.
Yeah. So for more information on the suffrage movement, and especially in St. John, check out our episode from last season on women's suffrage. So there's this temperance movement. And can I call a spade here?
Yeah, go for it.
With the temperance movement. Okay, it seems like a good idea on its surface, but the proposed solution for a societal problem is so simple. It's only one thing. Is you get rid of alcohol and society is a utopia. That is usually a red flag.
Yep.
That you're on the wrong path. And with alcohol, here's the thing I always thought, okay? It's kind of a chicken and the egg thing because they said alcohol is causing all of these things like poverty. Is there a possibility that poverty is causing alcoholism?
Yes, maybe it's, you have to consider that it's like a coping mechanism for a lot of people.
Yes, exactly. So like the thing is just cutting out one thing and going, yeah, everything's going to be fine. Overly simplistic, but that was the temperance movement. It's not where it started out. It was actually temperance. It was that moderation. Let's cut down. And that makes more sense, right? If we're looking at like some of the drug strategies we see today, it is about harm reduction. You're not just going to go, okay, everyone just stop.
Yeah, just cut it out.
We have to provide support and we want to be weaning society off of this. But this was temperance. So we had the first temperance movements in Canada. They came in around 1827. And then this is a fun fact. I find this a fun fact.
All right.
Is New Brunswick was the first province ever to go dry in 1855.
Huh.
There was Prohibition brought in 1855. And it was repealed in 1855.
Yeah. They went about 1 hour and they went, I can't do this. I can't do it.
Because Valerie, I think they got drunk and they were like, oh, this is a good idea. And then they sobered up going, what did we just do?
Done? Yeah.
Okay. Repeal that.
Take it away. Yeah.
So that went away. But then we brought in 1864, 1878, 1883, there were a bunch of acts of Parliament. Well, actually, the first acts were before Canada was Canada, so it only applied to the provinces or the province of Canada, but it was a Canada Temperance Act, and that did not prohibit alcohol. It did not. It allowed municipalities and areas to determine whether they wanted to go dry. So it gave them the framework. So some places went dry, some places didn't. But it was sporadic at best, right?
It's also really important to think about the fact that it's sort of sporadic and it varies by province to province and county to county, because when you look at the history of smuggling, which we'll get to, between, the states in Canada or between provinces, you might assume that because there is a uniform policy across the states, there's a uniform policy across Canada, but that's not true. And that sort of contributes to that whole sort of illicit, market of alcohol.
Absolutely. We have this movement, and I should say, like, the movement is grounded on good principles. there is a serious problem. I'm not downplaying the seriousness of what alcohol was doing to society. It's just the method might be questionable. Can you give us a little taste of a very powerful group that started in 1874, the Women's Christian Temperance Union of Canada?
I certainly can. So basically, the Women's Christian Temperance Union, if you think of the idea of temperance and you think of the idea of Christianity and you mash them together. So basically, they're taking all these sort of biblical or Christian principles and then using them to sort of resolve some social ills. So in their eyes, alcoholism was something that was, not biblical or not Christian. And so it was their duty as Christians to go forth and remove that social ill from society. And they sort of proliferate all throughout Canada. You'll see branches in every single city. St. John had a branch, Fredericton had a branch. It was everywhere. And basically they're the primary driving factor behind Prohibition and also behind a lot of suffrage movements in the mid to late 19th century in Canada.
So they were powerful groups, and they were really focused toward, again, that neglect and abuse within the family that was related to alcoholism. Now, whenever you're trying to make a social change, sometimes you get in bed with some unsavory characters that might be aligned philosophically with one aspect of what you're trying to do. I wouldn't say most aspects, but who came in to kind of help with the temperance push and at least the enforcement? The KKK.
Oh, yeah. They were here.
You can't gloss over that. No. The KKK was alive and well in New Brunswick and St. John, especially in the 1920s, 1930s. So they were coming in and they were heavy on Prohibition. Why were they so supportive of Prohibition? Was it for that noble cause of protecting the family?
In some ways, yes. When you think of the KKK, they, in some ways, they were sort of associated with people like the Orange Order and Christianity in different ways. And so that sort of led them towards the idea of protecting the family. But also when you think about the racial dynamics that they advocated, it certainly contributed.
Yes, the big thing was, alcohol, that's an evil brought on us by the Catholics and the immigrants.
Exactly.
So it's a nativist approach. So it really worked with their agenda saying we support Prohibition and we're going to go in and we're going to be enforcing. And they enforce where the police refuse to enforce. And I wouldn't say in a good way.
No.
It was more in Woodstock area that they would go in with their usual violence, the burning of crosses, to places like speakeasies, those kind of things, card shops, houses of ill repute, and they would go down and burn the thing down. But even around St. John area, there were a lot of cross burnings.
Yeah, and they sort of allowed the temperance union or temperance movement to have a wider effect because they reached demographics that the Women's Christian Temperance Union couldn't necessarily get because the KKK was a more male-led organization. So they had a little bit more impact. And then also because they were a Protestant organization, they could infiltrate those communities a little bit more effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is unfortunate,
Which is really unfortunate. Yeah. But yes, they did have that reach. And this is kind of an aside, and I'm not sure if it's going to go in the podcast. I always wondered about the burning of the cross. Because I always thought of it as the cross being this Christian symbol. And why are you burning a Christian symbol? Why is that?
I don't really know why they did that.
So, because it always puzzled me. But here's the thing. It's not a symbol of Christianity, the cross. Okay. So what they did is they grabbed the symbolic burning from the Scots. So the clans in Scotland, which used it as a sign of war.
Oh,
so they would burn a cross and say, we're at war. So that's what they were doing, plus the sheer terror element of a burning cross. It's terrifying. But let's get back to Prohibition. 1898. So there was a vote in Canada, a referendum on Prohibition. It was put out to the Canadian population going, do you support Prohibition or are you against it? And guess what it came back as? Because we know that it didn't come in 1898. So what do you think, Valerie? Do you think the Canadians were for or against?
I mean, given that it didn't come in, you would assume that it hadn't passed, but actually it did. And then it got dismissed in Parliament Because they didn't think there was enough voter turnout, which is interesting.
Yes, for political reasons, likely. So you're right. So I think it was a 51% voted, yep, we want prohibition. Prime Minister Laurier at the time, and he had his support base in Quebec, which didn't vote for prohibition and go, low voter turnout. So we can't really rely upon these things. So that didn't fly. So I think we're dead in the water. Valerie, we're not going to get this through. Come on. The majority of the Canadian population said, I want this in 1898, and nope, it's not going to come. So what would ever break this and bring us to prohibition? Well, a little thing we like to call the First World War.
Imagine that.
In 1914, we had the War Measures Act, which started restricting grain being used for intoxicating beverages because you needed the grain to go overseas to support the troops. So it became that patriotic way to support the war effort is stop drinking.
Yeah.
So it started to get that flavor of, you can actually stop or lower the consumption of alcohol. So it kind of got society ready for what was about to happen.
It's almost like, the extremity of that situation made the removal of alcohol seem way more feasible. You have a much, much more pressing social issue. And suddenly alcohol seems like, smaller fish to fry, if you will.
Oh, absolutely. And then when you have it that you see people dying overseas and going, well, the least I can do is I'm going to put down on the bottle. But we still have a problem because the war is going to end, right? The war was a big driver, I would say, in allowing prohibition to go in because it kind of gave them the taste of it. And then coupled with this is Income Tax Act. And you might go, well, how would Income Tax Act allow for prohibition? Well, you'd have to ask yourself, how did the government make its money to run before income tax?
Well, you can look at liquor.
It's excise tax, and a big portion of it was liquor. So if you were the government, Valerie, and you go, okay, this temperance movement, they're on me. They want me to bring this in. We would go bankrupt. Would you be bringing it in? The answer would be what?
No.
How could I run a government?
That's true. I have no money. Yeah.
When you slide in an income tax, which was a temporary tax, only to remain until the end of the war, by the way. So it's over. It ended in 1920, and we don't pay income tax anymore in Canada. Oh, wait a minute.
I paid my taxes. They took some of my income. Yeah.
They never removed it. It was supposed to be a temporary measure, but that brought in the ability to go, okay, we can handle the lack of alcohol revenue coming in. So that was a big thing. In 1918, at the end of the war, or getting toward the dying days of the war, you had the Canadian ban on importation, interprovincial trade, and sale of alcohol. That was kind of the last push, but that was a federal thing as a war measure.
Yes.
And it went off in 1919. But then, May 1st, 1917, the Intoxicating Liquor Act.
It's a good name.
It's a good name, isn't it?
Name. It's catchy.
The ILA.
Yeah.
I don't know if they called it that.
Someone must have.
And what that did was it banned the sale of alcohol with some exceptions. So we had exception for medical, sacramental, and industrial purposes. You could brew for export if you wanted to. Temperance beer was allowed. So that was beer under 2% or 2.5. I saw both numbers. For these exceptions, you had to get what was called a liquor vendor's license from the government to be able to exercise any of these exemptions. And guess what, Valerie? In St. John, there were 3 government-sanctioned warehouses full of booze.
Interesting.
Okay, so conveniently located. Well, when we get into St. John and how this is going to be great. Okay, so we had that come in 1917, but they go, okay, we're bringing it in. The War Measures Act is there anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You can't be selling alcohol to begin with.
Yes.
But we knew that would come off, but we're going to have a plebiscite. by then that we're going to put it to a vote of the people if they want it. That happened in July 10th of 1920. Did New Brunswickers vote for it or against it?
I would say no, given the fact that we love our drink.
They voted overwhelmingly in support.
Interesting.
With the exception of a few counties up in northern New Brunswick, but they voted in support of it. So that came in, prohibited the sale of alcohol, but in 1920, you could still import from out of province for your own personal use. That went away January 19th, 1922, when the province went bone dry.
Bone dry. Nay, a drop in sight.
Then we talked about prohibition in the States. Just quickly talk about that because that's going to affect our rum-running operations in New Brunswick and St. John. So that came in 1920, and they didn't pass the Intoxicating Liquor Act, Valerie. They didn't.
Shucks.
Guess what they did?
Tell me.
Okay, get this. For this social experiment to see if this was a good idea, they did a constitutional amendment. They put in this 18th Amendment. Once you amend the Constitution, it's really hard to ever take that away.
That's pretty permanent.
They enshrined it, coupled with the Volstead Act, to give the mechanism on how they were to enforce that constitutional amendment. Okay, let's go to St. John. I say we paint the picture of what St. John was like during Prohibition. And there's a quote from St. John Magistrate Ritchie talking about St. John and alcohol. Here's the quote. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Although the city was filled with spires pointing toward the heavens, people are going to hell as fast as they can.
I mean, it gets the point across.
It's poetic.
It's impassioned.
But give us a flavor of St. John during those post-war years.
Yeah. So at this point, St. John is less of a port city, more of an industrial hub. So you'll see a lot more industrial activities along the port uptown. You'll see a lot of segregation at this point, not only between, people of color and white people, but also between religions. So different parts of the city are sort of varied by demographic. You'll see a lot of social ills. So because there's so much division and there's not necessarily a strong social support system, you'll see a lot of poverty. You'll see a lot of poor houses and orphanages. At that point, they're called like asylums.
Okay. You have the working class city. It's poor.
Yes.
Unlike some other places in Canada post-war, Maritimes did not recover.
No.
Maritimes remained, and St. John in particular, it remained in an economic slump until at least 1925.
Yeah.
So it was poor. Forestry, fisheries, manufacturing, it all collapsed. And then throw in a war, an ending of the war. What impact did that have on the city?
Well, I mean, before we think about the impact, you have to consider that a lot of St. John's sort of young male stock had gone to war. And so when you come back and the city's industries are based off of these male professions, so like you said, timber and fishing and, industrial development, there's nobody to support the economy. So after the post-war slump, which would have happened regardless, your economy crashes a little bit.
Think about this. So the thing is, it left a lot of war widows who are now single mothers with children trying to support themselves.
This is true.
And if it were hard, and it was, to get a job as a man, it was almost impossible to get a job as a woman in that era.
Yeah.
So unfortunately and sadly, driven to some pretty extreme choices to provide for their families.
Yeah, a lot of people ended up in prostitution or doing other sort of illicit professions. You'll also see really interestingly that a lot of these women who lost their husbands and have all these children to support would fall into Christian groups for social services, so through their churches. And that allowed them to make more connections with people like the Women's Christian Temperance Union, who are still active at that point.
And then you have this. It's not well documented because it wasn't well understood back then, is post-traumatic stress syndrome. Okay, so all of these men would have come home, the ones who survived the war, they didn't survive unscathed, even if physically they came back. So mentally, they would have been an absolute wreck without having any mental health supports, because it wasn't recognized back then to any extent. What would they have likely been relying upon? Self-medicating with liquor.
Yes.
So you come back here. So we have the poverty. We have the women war widows trying to make ends meet. Then you have the need for self-medication amongst this huge group of men coming back who has suffered an extreme traumatic event. All of this coming, and then we're cutting out the alcohol.
No liquor.
No liquor. Okay,
None.
St. John is not going to take that, are they?
No, of course not.
Okay, so let's figure out, we talked about the law, Valerie. We talked about what it is, and we talked about the exemptions. Let's find a way to drink. And maybe profit from it.
I'm in.
We can pick up the local economy because of Prohibition.
You know, if there's lemons, there's lemonade.
And lemon, I can stick in my cocktail, my New Brunswick. Yeah, exactly. I see where you went with that. Nicely done. Nicely done. So what we have is we have three ways we can make money. So it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It's a complicated time in history, but we had bootlegging. Okay, so the illegal sale of alcohol, that's what we can do. We can moonshine. So we can do the home brew like I was doing in my bathtub, and we can rum run. Okay, so we can smuggle alcohol. Let's start off with bootlegging. Okay, we got those exemptions. How would you go about doing it, Valerie? We're 1920s St. Johners, and we got to make this work. We know there's a bunch of loopholes that we could drive a truck full of booze through in the law. What are we going to do?
Let's make it work. If you think about the fact that the pharmacies and places like that have a liquor license and they can hold alcohol, maybe you go down there to get your prescription and just schmooze the pharmacist a little and you get a couple extra shots.
You can do that, but what's really lucrative is being the pharmacist.
Even better.
Now we have a legal source of alcohol coming from those big three warehouses, and we have a vendor's license, okay? This is the first thing. So I'm glad you pointed that out. There's the medical exemption. Let's work that. We got two groups of people who can work that one. One being the doctor, who's prescribing the medicinal brandy. Now, what is medicinal brandy used for in the 1920s? What isn't it used for?
Exactly. It's a cure-all. If you have a headache, have a shot of medicinal brandy. If your left toe hurts, have some medicinal brandy. Toothache, anything and everything is cured.
Tuberculosis.
This is true, yeah.
Brandy.
Yeah, brandy. Why
cholera,
not?
as we learned from the cholera episode of the podcast, brandy.
Yeah. Cancer, brandy.
Everything's cured by brandy. The doctors would give you a prescription, and then that made you able to buy the alcohol from the pharmacy. And guess when the peak season was for these medical conditions that required brandy?
I'm going to bet in the winter.
Jingle bells, jingle. It's Christmas time.
Interesting.
Achoo. I have something that needs a little medicinal brandy with my turkey.
I just have a little sore in my throat, and some brandy would really help me be able to swallow my Christmas dinner.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. And so the prescription would be written, the doctor would get $1, and then you would go to the pharmacist and get your medicinal brandy. They would get $1. So that worked fine. Until the pharmacists go, I'd rather have $1.50 than $1.
I can't blame them. They're working the system, Yeah,
so they ended up going, don't worry about the prescription part of this. Okay, we have a good stash. And supposedly this was the case. Some pharmacists, the pharmacy was more of a liquor store than a pharmacy. Like they had maybe some ointment and a couple Band-Aids, but that's it. And then it was just all alcohol and then other stuff that wasn't brandy, the good stuff being out back. So they became, the de facto liquor store, illegal liquor store. So that was a way we could do it. What was another way we could do this using the exemptions?
Maybe if you're at the church and
bless you.
Thank you. If you got a really good relationship with the pastor and you go, you know, I just need a little extra blood of Christ today. Just a little bit.
Maybe I get the calling from God to be the pastor.
This is true. Suddenly you see the light and you're very compelled. And the light is actually a bottle of wine.
Ordinations went through the roof with Prohibition, because everyone was going, oh, hey, I'm a pastor now. Come, my flock.
Please, I'm the shepherd.
So that was another way to do it. The other one was the beer leggers. Okay, so that was huge in St. John's, beer parlors. And remember, you were allowed to sell temperance alcohol. So if it were below the 2.52%, then it was perfectly legal. So they had all of these beer parlors all over the city. There were 52 beer parlors selling what is essentially near beer. Do you think there would be that much of a market for very weak beer to go out to a beer parlor? No. Not really, but this is what happened. Valerie, like sometimes you just can't control the amount of alcohol, right? Like, I really try to make it 2%, but maybe this batch was a little stronger.
I hate it when that happens.
I hate when that happens.
I hate it.
We had the temperance beer over here, and then the strong beer for export, and sometimes they get mixed up.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
Mark, I told you to separate the barrels.
I know. I'm so sorry. Did people get sloshed at our beer parlor last night?
And, I might have accidentally taken a case of the strong stuff home just because I was scared that you weren't going to know what to do with it because you kept accidentally mixing them.
Accidents really do happen.
They do.
Those were the beer parlors. And then we have to go into the completely illegal stuff. So this was the stuff that was skirting law, but then there were other ways to do it. And there were the illegal liquor stores popping up. And there was this line from someone who lived on the West St. John side. And what they said was, this person knew 34 places a person in the West St. John could buy liquor after Prohibition. Before Prohibition, it was really difficult to buy liquor in West St. John. So we're starting to see this is not really working the way the temperance movement would want it to work. It's just driving it underground. We had other ways, like hotels were big ones. So I grab a hotel room, call to the front desk going, can you send me up something special? Oh, yes, sir. Yep. Then taxi cabs.
Yeah.
And it became known as taxi cab gin because I think they made it themselves. And you would prefer my bathtub gin from what I've read.
Taxi cab gin makes it sound like they're taking the floor mats and squeezing the juice out of those to make the gin.
Oh, you read the instruction manual for taxi.
I might have just by accident, just a little bit.
No, that's exactly.
That's flavor. Exactly. Don't worry about it. The road salt as a nice little, like I was saying, undertone.
A bouquet. Undertone. Yeah. So, and then you had restaurants, and then you had fronts like grocery stores, barber shops, clothing stores. This is kind of funny, I find. Dry goods stores selling the wet stuff.
Deeply ironic. Yeah.
So a few got busted in St. John for that. Then you had houses of ill repute, which were known for selling alcohol. And on the street, there were two big areas. If we wanted to go get some booze, we'd go down by the Market Square area. For people who are not familiar with St. John, that's close to the waterfront, to the harbor. And the other place was around the Prince Edward Square area, which is kind of where the peninsula goes inland. Yeah. And that was in the central area. And that was a place where if we just walked around, go, hey, you got some of the good stuff? Oh, yeah, I got some of the good stuff. And it may be good stuff. It may not be good stuff. Because counterfeiting was a big deal back then, that they would make the bottles look like the good stuff, but it wasn't the good stuff. So just to finish off bootlegging, the other thing is blind pigs, or as most people call them, speakeasies. Now, I haven't found a lot of or any mention of speakeasies in St. John. There seem to be these beer parlors, but I just wanted to throw this out there. Have you ever been to Hopscotch Whiskey Bar?
Yeah.
Okay. Ken and Holly Singh own it. And supposedly in the basement, they've set up a speakeasy.
But that'd be cool.
And I so want to go there someday.
I do too. Yeah, if you're ever in St. John, we should go.
So maybe if Ken and Holly are listening to the episode, they can invite us. The other thing is, have you ever been to the cocktail lounge? It's the name, I think it's Cooteroo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's in like that alley. Yeah.
Yeah, 34 Grannon Street. So it is owned by a friend of the podcast, Eric Skelton. And I've never been, and I so want to. So hopefully he will invite us sometime.
It's good. It's really good.
Because it has a speakeasy feel to it. And I'm sure that Eric could mix up some great Prohibition era cocktails.
No bathtub gin.
New Brunswicker.
Yeah. Oh, I want the taxi one, actually. I do wonder if the sort of reporting of speakeasies is lower because of the sort of nature of the building, where it's much more hush-hush. Like a beer parlor is a little more informal, maybe a little grungier, whereas a speakeasy is a little more secretive and maybe exclusive. You know, because you don't want too many loudmouth people spreading the word about your little, drinking hutch.
Oh, good point. Good point. So it might have escaped the historic record because everyone kept quiet about it.
Yeah.
So we might have had this big jazz scene and everything like the speakeasies in New York.
Yeah, we'll just never know.
I want to believe that.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
But okay, so that's bootlegging. Now let's start moonshining. Okay, let's make the stuff because we were selling it illegally, and it might have been moonshine. It might have been actual good stuff coming from Europe. Who knows? Or it might have been medicinal and sacramental and all those kind of things. But let's do some moonshinings. They had stills in St. John, a lot of them.
Yes.
Now, some of them were like my setup, Valerie, that we were doing in my bathtub. It was a milk jug and a coil, and I distilled I might have got a gallon in a week.
Slow work.
And sold it or drank it, whatever the
Given
case
the
might
fact
be.
that you're drinking maybe 19 to 45.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're drinking 19 to 45, 1 gallon a week is not going to cut it.
Nothing. It would barely quench my thirst. But some of them could produce as much as 30 gallons a day.
Okay.
That was huge. Like some of the ones they busted, I think there was one on Prince William Street, and they had to basically take out the side wall to remove the still of the building because it was that big.
Yeah.
So there were big operations happening, and now I don't like this. This is this is the worst of times of Prohibition is renaturing industrial alcohol.
Not as enticing as it might sound to some listeners, shockingly.
Oh, it really isn't. So with industrial alcohol, if they didn't add anything to it, you could drink it. But what they do is they add a bunch of impurities. So they denature alcohol and even put in some poisons so that people will not drink it. And this is a sad part of this is it got so bad with the American effort to deal with the drinking of denatured alcohol. They started double downing and triple downing on what they were adding to make it more and more poisonous, and people were dying.
Yeah.
They knew people were drinking this and they wanted to. The love of Prohibition won over the public health safety, knowing that they were really tainting the supply.
Yeah. It's sort of that idea of, you can make something illegal, but that just means that people are going to find less safe ways of achieving that. It's almost, you can sort of tie it back to that initial idea of moderation in temperance, where they might have understood the fact that if you completely remove something, you make it illegal, people are just going to find illegal ways to access it. But if you moderate it, you can maybe manage.
It's harm reduction is what you want to be doing with any of this, not the complete elimination without any support. So in St. John, we had that. So people were drinking rubbing alcohol. There was a story about a guy who was legendary in St. John because he could drink rubbing alcohol and nothing happened. Well, he got drunk, don't get me wrong, but he lived. He would just pound back rubbing alcohol.
Yes. Also, the fact that living after drinking the alcohol was sort of something of bragging rights should tell you all that you need to know about the nature of drinking this liquor, you know?
And I can see after.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, because neurological damage of this stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So look at me, what I can do. And this was a popular drink in St. John. It was called canned heat.
Okay.
Do you know what it is?
Is this lighter fluid?
It's that little canister you put on a camp stove.
Oh.
They drink it. They drink it.
Well, you know what? If it's going on, a camp stove, it'll keep you warm in two ways. One when you start the fire, and then one when you drink it after.
Lord, I can't imagine.
No.
I can't imagine drinking that stuff, but they would pound these things back because they were cheap and they would get you sloshed.
Yeah, and they were accessible.
And then we had this, I'd go for this, lemon extract.
Oh, yeah. Hey, we were talking about that lemon juice earlier,
Yeah, so they were trying to go, I got a big party and I have to have a lot of lemon pies. What do you use lemon extract for?
Baking, pies, cakes.
I got a lot of baking to do. And then the stores caught on to it pretty quickly, and manufacturers, and they started making very tiny bottles, and that you could only buy so many of them.
Yes.
But that was another thing. And then methyl hydrate. This is the really dangerous alcohol, like antifreeze.
Yes, yeah. Paint thinners.
It was killing people. So you might go, okay, after all of this, what's happening to the temperance movement? Are they getting accusations against them for, I don't know, murder?
I would assume so. If you're having this many sort of drinking issues, it's sort of inevitable that you're going to have some sort of opposition. Because if you look at the social landscape, you can see really, really clearly that temperance is not working as intended, and that you're just having these much more illicit sort of drinking methods. And it's having way worse social impacts than perhaps it would have, the previous alcohol consumption might have had.
There we go. It's not working. Plus, it's killing people. The bodies are starting to pile up. And here's a quote from a bishop in Fredericton when dealing with the accusation of murder with the temperance movement. And his quote was this: "In time, this would work itself out, but there would have to be some people buried before that time comes." It's very sensitive.
Yes, he's very, adept, clearly, to the social environment.
People have to be sacrificed and die for the greater good.
It's almost like they're running their own trolley experiment here, This
is one of the problems that we see, and we are facing this with the drug trade right now. You make it illegal, and then you're getting a very tainted product come onto the market, right? Where if you regulate it, then you can regulate the quality. I know it's not that easy. Don't get me wrong, Valerie. I can see it in your face. It's not that easy, Green. No. Like, this is a big issue we're facing today, but you see what they were facing back 100 years ago. It was the same issue about a tainted supply.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost sort of comforting, though, to see that this is not the first time that the city's encountered an issue like this, No,
we can learn. This is the thing. Learn from thy history, right?
Imagine that.
We can see what works, what doesn't, and maybe have a better approach going forward.
Yeah, there's the sort of idea that history might not repeat, but it definitely rhymes,
Ah, nice. Okay, and the final thing that we have to do, so we did some bootlegging, the illegal sale of alcohol. Then we did some moonshining to create the thing. Now we got a rum run.
Let's do it.
So let's smuggle, because we want to make some money smuggling big time into United States. Like, there was some smuggling in during the 1920, 27, that era, absolutely. But the big money was to be made during the Prohibition in the United States between 1920 and 1933.
Absolutely.
So it started off pretty good for St. Johners, because we had that depression in the fisheries industry. So you had a bunch of unemployed fishermen.
Yeah, they're just waiting for their time. If you've got all these boats sitting idle and a neighbor who's thirsty, it would be terrible, just awful, if one of those boats just so happened to slip out of the Bay of Fundy, and shucks, what if it went down the coast and a couple bottles fell off the boat and into the States. That would be terrible.
Again, back to accidents do happen. Accidentally, you load 400, 500 cases of whiskey aboard.
Shucks.
You accidentally go into international waters and you accidentally end up off the coast of New York.
How did that happen? That's just terrible.
It's just an accident.
Oh, it was the tides. They just pulled the boats
Blame
down.
the tides.
Yeah, exactly.
The quote coming from a fisherman back then was, beats carrying sardines.
This is true. It might be a little more profitable than their previous markets, especially if you're having this depression. Yeah.
Oh, way more. They were making more in a run than they would make in like a 6-month period.
And also, the demand would have been way higher for alcohol than for sardines.
Well, I do enjoy a good sardine.
I can't say I do.
Oh, seriously?
I know it makes no sense. I'm from a coastal town. I don't like seafood.
It's how you prepare it. But anyway, I don't think I can
get behind it.
Talk afterwards.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So we have Rum Row. Mm-hmm. And this was a great deal for the St. Johners to begin with, because it was off the New England coast. So the New York, New Jersey, that area too. You could go within 3 miles of the coast. So there was that 3-mile nautical limit of U.S. waters versus international waters.
Yes.
So 3 miles is no big deal. No. You could take our boat that just happened to accidentally float from the Bay of Fundy down there, sit accidentally right at the 3-mile mark, and then smaller boats would have no problem coming out, getting your stash, bringing it back to New York. And supposedly they even had jazz bands on board when they went out, and it was a party going out to the boat. So everything was great. And Maritimers were making money.
Yes. Liven up the economy.
Which was really important.
Yeah.
But yeah, things turned.
I can't imagine that going out there with a jazz band is too subtle. And surely people will eventually catch on that something is going on out here.
Oh, when the saints. No. People would catch on, but they didn't really care, and they didn't think they could stop it.
Yes.
But then U.S. went heavy on this, on enforcement, because they go, we have this law. It's the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, and everyone's just saying, forget you. We're doing it anyway. And then they go, you know what we have is we had a war.
Yes.
World War I. And we have a bunch of vessels, battleships, warships, from the First World War, and they're just sitting ready to be mothballed. Let's deploy them as the dry navy to go out and battle the rum runners.
Perfect. Round 2 of the war.
So we're out there, Valerie. We're out there, and we're hearing, "We'll win the Saints." It's coming.
Yeah.
And then look behind you, Valerie. There seems to be a U.S. battleship.
I don't think I can put up with that. Not like today. They were maybe a little more concerned with their Constitution and upholding parts of it.
Ooh.
Who said that?
Too soon, Valerie?
Who said that?
I don't know.
Must have been the wind. I would never say such a thing.
Nice. Okay, so what we had was that, and then they go, we're going to put out the nautical territory 12 miles out. So it went from 3 to 12. Which made it not so easy to do those little jazz runs to the boat. Yeah. So we had to now sit 12. So we're probably thinking, let's go back to St. John. But nope, we're still lots of profit to be had. But then these U.S. military cutters started coming up at us, and they went on the attack. So there were 2 incidents where they attacked Canadian vessels in what seemed to be international waters. There was a dispute, but if it wasn't at international waters, it was right at the cusp, like 11.9 miles, that kind of thing. So there was the I'm Alone, nice name of a vessel, I'm Alone. It was sunk in 1929 when it tried to flee a U.S. vessel. And 1 person was killed. And remember, with these 2, and the other one, I should say, Josephine K., 1931, the captain was killed when he was trying to flee. It wasn't sunk. What were they doing? They were providing alcohol to a country that did not allow alcohol. So they were alcohol terrorists, if we can call them that. being fired on by American vessels and given the death penalty for smuggling alcohol. Like the punishment fitting the crime?
Not so much. But I mean, if you're looking at it from the legal perspective, they're sort of violating one of their constitutional principles. And so that is quite a serious offense.
Quite a serious offense. But so it caused international incidents because the Canadian government goes, hey, you just killed a Canadian in international waters. And there was an inquiry, and then there was some math done. Some questionable math about, okay, well, this point of land is what you mark it from. So if you go out there, you get the 11.9. But it was very questionable whether this was necessary use of force or not. But that was what happened. So it got really dangerous in Rum Row. But we got this other place, Valerie. It's called the Bay of Fundy.
Perfect. It's magnificent.
It has the 3-mile limit at the time. And you can go there, you can smuggle by land.
Exactly. And that's also why it's so important to think about the whole sort of provincial variation thing. So if you can get it into that open province, you can get it down to the States much, much easier and without having to face off with a warship.
There we go. So we started having Rum Row North in the Bay of Fundy. Never anything like Rum Row. No. It wasn't ever as popular as that, but it was enough that they were dumping their cargo. There were stashes found all the way from St. Martin's to Calais, Maine, caches of alcohol. So it was a big business. And then the other thing the St. Johners did is the signal stations, because what you had to do is you had to alert the rum-running vessels when it's safe to come in, when the Coast Guard might be close. So what they would do is they would set up these signal stations in attics around the city.
Yeah, and then they would sort of set up these almost like pseudo lighthouses, like a DIY lighthouse, and you would flash the signal to let people in, which is also very convenient if you're in St. John because there's 20 million lighthouses going on. So another flash is a little inconspicuous.
Exactly. So you're getting the message going, okay, it's safe to come in, or no, the Coast Guard is closed, so you'd want to stay away. And they used some encoded messages. They weren't very complicated. Like it was like stick in an A between every letter kind of thing. And they had a couple of alphabets that it was enough to throw the authorities off, except for this. Guess who was running a lot of the illegal stations?
Was it the Coast Guard?
The Coast Guard.
How convenient.
So it was either this, it was the Coast Guard kind of doing a double agent thing and setting these. So this is why the code system was so important, that you knew if it were an actual illegal station or the Coast Guard.
Yes.
The other thing is that you could make money at night because you were a signal operator. You would do this at night and work for the other side.
Exactly. It's like we said earlier, you're writing the sort of legislation with one hand and then holding a beer in the other.
There we go. And then you might ask, do we have an Al Capone of St. John? We heard about this in the opening story. His name was Harry Dutchy Stone. Yeah. So I don't know about your take, but I didn't get an Al Capone flavor. He wasn't really that big personality, charismatic.
No, nor that big intelligence per se.
No, he got caught a lot.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes to me that he probably got away with a lot, don't get me wrong, but got caught a lot. And the Green brothers, no relation, by the way, the Green brothers, well, at least I don't think they are a relation. Maybe they are, but they didn't seem that swift either. Could be wrong, just trying to create a narrative from a very scant historic record on these guys. But he got that ship seized. And that was a huge loss. He lost a bunch at sea. He was actually charged with drunk driving, which takes a lot back in that era, but he almost killed someone.
Yeah.
So he was obviously drinking from his stash, which if we learn anything from the movies about drug dealers, you never...
Don't dip into your own stash.
You never dip into your own stash.
No.
Words of wisdom from St. John Nothing Happened Here podcast.
Yeah,
never
don't
dip into your own stash.
Yeah.
Now, to end off this part of it is enforcement. So we had the illegal trade going on, and then we had the enforcers of it, and they were known as the booze hounds.
Yes.
Which I always thought the booze hound were the people who loved drinking so much, but supposedly back then they were called booze hounds because they went after the people illegally selling and manufacturing alcohol. And so they were the liquor inspectors, and most of them were on the take.
Yeah, that's not surprising at this point. If you look at the pattern so far.
Because they were making some serious money. So either they were taking bribes to look the other way, they were confiscating illegal alcohol, then selling it. I'm not saying they were all like that. There were certainly people who were above board. I didn't find anyone that I would call the untouchable.
No.
The Elliot Ness of St. John, I didn't find it, but I'm sure there were people who were above board. But it ended up costing St. Johners a lot of money enforcing this provincial legislation, and all the fines, all the revenue that came from this, it went to the provincial coffers. So we had in 1925, Mayor Frink of St. John goes, okay, guys, you want us to enforce, you're breaking us here. We're going to go broke. All we ask for provincial government is give us half of the fine revenue. Just half, not the whole thing.
Yeah.
Just half. And the New Brunswick government said, no. So it was a hard no. So Frink goes, well, Frink you. And he goes, well, we're just not going to enforce anymore.
Yeah.
So basically it became like a sanctuary city. So we've heard a lot about sanctuary cities recently, and what they are is it's not necessarily that it's a complete sanctuary. It is the city saying, we're refused to put our resources into enforcing your laws, provincial government, federal, wherever that might be. And so we're just not going to help you with that.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about like the economic depression that the city was experiencing and starting to come out of, and then the fact that, this sort of illegal activity was so prolific and so like all consuming, it really doesn't make sense to waste your resources on trying to stop an issue which you're not going to stop, really, honestly, especially when half your task force is involved.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So it probably stayed as illegal as needed to keep the scams going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like probably that's what the enforcement is when it was profitable. And that was about it. So it became like St. John became a place that it was kind of a blind eye mostly to this. But then this is a fun fact of the episode. I had no idea about this. Did you know that there was for a brief period of time, a New Brunswick provincial police?
I did not.
The NBPP.
I can't imagine anybody taking them too seriously with that acronym.
NBPP?
Maybe not.
Hey, you know me. But yeah, so it was from 1927 to 1932. It operated. Then it was taken over by the RCMPs, but it was established for this, to enforce prohibition law. And then they go, well, we'll cover all the other stuff too. But it operated for a while, and then it went bankrupt, as did the rest of the province in the Great Depression. And they go, okay, well, we're going to fold that and go RCMP. But that is what was happening in St. John. And again, remember, it was... I want to say it was a bit of survival. It wasn't like, oh, we want to get away with things and just do it because it's illegal. This was going, we are in a tough spot economically, socially, and all of these things. And we have prohibition thrown on top of this. Let's make it work.
Yeah. It's sort of like if you're given a set of tools, you just kind of have to accept some things. It's almost like what that pastor was saying with there will be some due deaths, but in a much more perverse way, where they're sort of accepting that in order to survive economically, you would have to accept a certain amount of illegal activity. I mean, if you have that fabulous resource that is the Bay of Fundy, and you have this coastal sort of infrastructure, make it work.
Oh, it worked out perfectly for St. Johners.
Yeah.
They talk about the right place at the right time.
That was that. It was perfect. It was idyllic.
And finally, let's just talk about the fallout of this. Did it work?
No, I mean, let's look at it. Like if you look at it, call a spade a spade. You have all this death and these sort of illicit social organizations, and you still have the same social ills. In fact, they might be worsened.
Oh, yeah. So this was called the Noble Experiment. And if it's taught us anything, do not do a noble experiment like this that puts everything on one thing only as to rid society of all ills and then enshrine it in legislation.
No, it doesn't work.
It's not a place to be experimenting.
Yeah.
This is what happened. We had a drop in the demand for grain, which had an economic impact straight across the country. You had a rise in violent crime because we didn't really get into this. We got a little bit into it with Harry Stone, Dutchie.
Yeah.
If you remember Dutchie, organized crime moved in big time. Now, organized crime existed before Prohibition, but this really brought it out because it created this huge demand and allowed for these smaller organized crime groups to get into these bigger syndicates, which we still have. Like they went right from Prohibition to drugs.
Totally. It just switched
those
over.
are kind of the impacts.
Yeah. And if you have all these sort of places like the beer parlors and the speakeasies, and you want to maximize your profit, it makes sense that you're going to try and eliminate competition. And that leads to that sort of factionalism in the city, which leads to greater violence, like you were saying.
And if you can't get alcohol, what might you be getting to satisfy you?
Well, drugs.
Drugs.
Yeah.
So drug use went way up. Thank you very much, temperance movement. Dangerous, unregulated supply, decreased tax revenue, increased expenses and enforcement, job losses, breweries and distilleries, which were major employers, closed. Labatt's, get this, Labatt's almost dissolved in 1921. We almost lost Labatt's.
Gut-wrenching. Also, you talked about job losses, and I don't think we really got into it. But for women, there was actually a little bit of a job gain here if you're working with liquor. So, two sides of a coin.
It did bring an increase in the black market economy, which did help. But is that really your goal? Was that what the temperance movement was going, like the women's temperance union was going? We really want to increase the black market economy. So it didn't stop the drinking. It just drove it underground. Like, yes, they saw a decline in drinking before Prohibition to after Prohibition. But however, that's a statistic.
Yeah, that's also the reported amount, not necessarily the reality of the situation. And given the fact that it was made illegal, people were probably much less willing to report than before.
Exactly. So like you can't just say like the consumption is down because like maybe it's the legal consumption, it's the illegal. They said, well, there was a drop in alcohol related crimes and drunkenness and stuff like that. And maybe that's because there was less enforcement afterwards. We don't know. There's so many variables. So you can do so much with statistics. Like 94.76% of the time you can manipulate statistics.
Yeah. You can sort of shift it to suit your needs. That was good. I saw that.
And it was supposedly on the downtrend anyway from that 19 to 46 liters we saw. So it was probably on the decline anyway. And it kept on declining afterwards, even to today. It has gone back up a bit with COVID. But I believe it's again on the decline. But Prohibition was seen as an incentive to vice and immorality because it was allowing people who were saying, you put in a strict law like that, and one that a lot of people thought unjust, it's going to encourage people to break the law. And once you get a taste for breaking the law, Valerie,
just keep going.
You keep on going.
You know, give an inch, take a mile.
Exactly. So Prohibition went out the door, repealed in New Brunswick in 1927, 1933 in the United States. And guess what? This is kind of a claim to fame. The first legal shipment of alcohol to the United States after Prohibition ended came out of St. John.
There you have it.
St. John, nothing happened here. December the 6th, 1933, the SS Evangeline, with 200 cases of whiskey and 100 cases of wine, went out to Boston. And the first time Bostonians in 13 years had a legal drink.
I just know that was a big day for them.
It was
Very
a huge
exciting.
day.
Yeah.
So what changes did this bring in? Well, we got government liquor control boards came in after this, and this was a good move. It again is let's regulate. Other changes it did, as we said, created organized crime. I wouldn't say that's a great one.
No.
Social changes came from this, and I'm a little split on this whether this is a good thing because remember we talked about it being male dominated before.
Yes.
The males would go to saloons and women would stay home. Well, what happened when it became illegal? Then everyone was like, forget the convention of men only. Women come out, drink illegally with us.
And also different sort of races and ethnicities and religions were now placed in the same sort of social standing.
It brought in some social change. That's why I'm like, I said, it was the best of times and the worst of times. Like it did start taking away a little bit of the segregation. I'm not saying even close to taking away segregation. Don't get me wrong. But it was kind of started like, if we're talking about a pop machine and it still hasn't gone over yet, we're still nowhere close to dealing with racial and gender inequities. Not even close, but it started to tip. I would say Prohibition started tipping it.
I also wonder if being on that same playing field and having to almost work together, if it sort of softened them to each other in a certain way. You know, if people became more tolerant in some ways and seeing that you are in the same situation of desperation or need as somebody else. Yeah,
what I think it did, like from what I read, is it took some of the stranglehold of religion off of people. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't just blindly have someone that's thumping a Bible and say, you will burn in hell kind of thing. It made them go, really? Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Is that what we're getting at? So it kind of allowed people to question some of these like authorities that they would just blindly follow before that. But ultimately, this was what was attempted. Law to try to change a person's behavior. And whenever you have that, that is trying to get an external force coming in to try to change you. Mm-hmm. And what we know is that seldom ever works. True change comes from within and supporting that change from within. And that is the podcast. And proof, once again, St. John,
nothing happened
here.
Thank you for listening to St. John, Nothing Happened Here. To learn more, join us at www.nothinghappenedhere.ca or connect with us on Facebook. Other means of communication include, but are not limited to, telegrams, smoke signals, and carrier pigeons. However you want to reach us, we want to hear from you.